everybody. Welcome once again to another edition of the podcast. Mike Claiborne here. My special guest today, the winningest coach in the state of Missouri when it comes to basketball on the girls' side, or period. In my opinion, the best coach we've ever seen. He's the athletic director and also the head coach at Incarnate Word Academy in St. Louis, Missouri, number 10 ranked in the country as we speak. It's great to visit with my good buddy, Dan Rolfes. Coach, you know what? You don't look any younger from the first day I saw you. What are you drinking?
I don't know. These gray hairs keep popping up. These girls, but thanks. I'll take that as a compliment.
You know what? And I said this, and I mean it. Because we talk about great coaches in the state of Missouri. We always go to the guys, and I get it. But what you and your staffs, and you've had many assistants that have worked for you, what you guys have done as far as creating a run is unparalleled at any level. And for our viewers who haven't had a chance to experience what Incarnate Word is all about, you've never had a losing season. You've had an 87% winning percentage. You've been there 22 years and haven't lost 100 games yet. So how many state championships have come with that?
10.
10. So basically every other year, you're winning somebody's state championship. You're in the midst of an incredible run now that goes back to last year. And I was wondering, when you won that state championship last year and you looked around and said, I got all these kids coming back. That doesn't happen a great deal in high school sports or in college sports. What was going through your mind at that point when you realized we not only won, we have a chance to even be better next year because I get them all back together?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, you never try to look too far ahead. But, when we won last year, it was almost like we won for 2 years in a row because the previous year we had gotten to the state finals and we really had the same kids. We lost my daughter who, played a lot, but we had all of our starters coming back from that 2020 team. So when we won in 21, it was almost like we felt like we won for 2 years. But then, after you get done and you realize, okay, we got everybody coming back. We could do this again. And we picked up some pretty nice freshmen who are playing now. It's exciting, and you never take things for granted, and I'll never take things for granted, but it sure makes the heading into the season fun.
Incarnate Word Academy, a small all-girls school in North County in St. Louis, and I call it the basketball factory. I mean, anybody who's any good goes there, but I look at what you've done at that program, and I see girls basketball spreading out around the area where we're seeing a lot of other programs that are starting to have some consistency. When did you get the coaching bug? I'm going to come back to that, but when did you get the coaching bug? Because you're a young guy and you've been at this for a while.
I know how young I am, but it's kind of crazy. Back in the day, I played sports in high school. We played back then. You played everything. We played football, you played basketball, baseball, and I'm always super competitive. When I was a kid, my dad coached all of us in sports, and when I was in college, I went back to coach. I went to Aquinas, and I went back to coach some sports there, and I had this girlfriend who is now my wife, had this little sister who came home crying one day, upset about her CYC basketball coach. And I'm like, you know what? I'll coach it, whatever. So I took a bunch of girls from CYC, went down, played at Matthew Dickey. And then we were really good. And then just kind of coached them through college while I was in college. And once I got out of college, got a high school job at Rosary High School, which doesn't exist anymore. Went there for a couple of years, had a lot of success, had the opportunity to go to St. Louis University and coach there with the women's team there. And went there and learned a ton, just not only about basketball, but, scouting and preparing for games and, how the college game works. So then, started having kids and realized that I didn't want to be on the road, 5 nights a week recruiting. Back then there was no recruiting rules. We'd be out, I'd
Oh
drive
yeah.
to Chicago and watch a game and be back for practice at 6:30 in the morning. And that was, a couple nights a week. So landed this job here at Incarnate, and they had some success, at that point. But been here ever since.
I mentioned the fact that you've won 10 times, and I'm not going to ask you who your favorite player, the coach was, or your favorite team, but internally, how often internally do you think about the past and find similarities in some of the kids and some of the teams you've coached that may be memorable in the back of your head that you look at now and you try and make comparisons to, and maybe try and apply a tactic that you used then, see if it'll work with this group of kids?
Yeah, it's so funny because everybody that graduates and wins a state championship, they think their team is the best ever at Incarnate Word.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just so funny. I had two alum come the other night to a game, and like, we were the best, weren't we? Weren't we the best?
Oh
And
yeah, sure. Yeah,
like,
you're all right.
yes, you are. But what I really love is the fact that the players who graduate and play at Incarnate feel vested in what we are doing now. They take pride in our success and feel like they have a part, and they do. Success breeds success, and these alum, look at it and they're like, well, the reason you're sponsored by Nike now is because we got you there. And, that sort of mentality, which I really, really love. And all the graduates feel like I'm getting soft on our players, but you ask our players now, they probably think they think I'm crazy. So
I think you're somewhere in between.
Probably.
Yeah,
I'm living and learning. It's definitely a different day and age of coaching. I know when I got here, we didn't have a ton of talent. We had good players, not great players, but I mean, it was 3-hour practice, 6 days a week. I mean, we were grinding and grinding and grinding. And then, I've learned that sometimes maybe that's not the best, and pick my battles, and I'm learning too. And, I'm dealing with high school girls, and, I'm as much psychologist as I am coach.
I'm sure. And that's something when you talk about high school girls, and it applies to boys too, but you being of the opposite sex, you have to be able to be a good listener, I'm sure. But just like boys, you got to pat them on the back, you got to kick them in the butt sometimes in order to get their attention. But for you kind of everything to these kids. I mean, I know how much these kids love you as a coach and what you meant to them off the court. But how much has it changed for you as far as your approach? I mean, as you said, some people might think you're going nuts, but you have to have your finger on the pulse of these kids because it's a different kid. It starts at home. They're souped up. Everybody who comes to Incarnate thinks they deserve a scholarship for the next level. May not always work that way. So for you've got to be the voice of reason, but yet and still try and maximize the opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. For starters, I feel like everything is about relationships, and for me to be able to holler at them and get on them and demand the best, they got to know that I love them, care about them, and want the best for them. If they don't feel that way, then me hollering at them is not going to do any good. And so, I feel like I treat all of our girls like I would my daughter, and I look at them that way. I want them to succeed, and I want them to be, the best that they could possibly be. But sometimes, you got to ground your daughter, and you got to let them know, the right way to do things. And there's some other ways to approach things. So, and at the end of the day, we want to win a lot of games, and we want to do things the right way. But at the end of the day, I want to have that relationship with them 10 years down the road. I want them to be able to bring their their daughters back and say, hey, this is where I played in high school, and this is Coach Rolfes, and still have a good relationship with them. I do. I really want that. That means a lot to me.
And you've even had players come back and coach with you.
For sure.
I think is cool.
Multiple players. And I there's nobody better. No one knows, what I want and the demands and is invested in Incarnate than our former players. So I love that they want to come back and coach. And then, in what you alluded to earlier is the fact that, we do get a lot of very good players with a lot of high expectations. And some of them can go to other places and start as a freshman and be the leading scorer. And so they give that up when they come here a little bit. Are they going to be good players? Yes. Are they going to be that leading scorer and starter right off the bat? Maybe not. But I think they come here knowing that, every day they're going to be challenged and they're going to be playing against, some of the best players in the state and in the country. And, we kind of live by the motto, iron sharpens iron. And, a lot of times our practices are more difficult than the games. So, I'm lucky that I get players that buy into that. And if they don't, they'll struggle.
I'm glad you brought up the fact that scoring, because I watch your box scores wherever I'm at always, and you guys have really destroyed some teams this year. And I look at the box score, and nobody's having like a 35-point night. It seems like there's so much balance, and I see that you guys still play as hard as anyone defensively. And I guess when kids see the end result of winning, they put all the other individual stats behind them, and then you have to deal with their parents, because the parents always want them to shoot. They always want them to have the ball. But these kids, it seems like they play for each other. And if you score 12 tonight and I score 5, who cares? We win the game. And it just seems like once you have that concept built in, and other kids have seen it, because you haven't had many kids who would just come out and lead the area and score or anything along that line. But it seems like when other kids see, hey, this is how it works and this is how they win all the time, that's got to be a great tool for you to attract kids and get other kids who may have been individuals somewhere else to buy into the team concept.
Yeah, for sure. And we're not built like that. We're not built to have one player,
You've had a few, but not recently.
Yeah, you have Nafisa, and you have a couple of those are, once in a lifetime kids that do. But even when Nafisa's playing, she's around 4 other Division I kids. So, which makes me look really good. But yeah, I'm lucky I've been here, and, we've already kind of covered that for 22 years. And I think people know what they're getting into when they come into Incarnate, and they know that, we're going to prepare them to get to the next level. And I've never had a college coach say, well, she's not scoring enough points. Here at Incarnate, the college coaches feel like they're getting prepared. I feel like we do a really good job of game preparation. Our kids are watching film, and I feel like we always have a great scout on our opponents. And those are some intangibles that a lot of people don't think about when they're going to college and what makes a college athlete successful. It's a lot of those little things, time management, being able to read a scout, knowing how to guard a person. So I feel like they get that here, and I think that's a big reason for our success.
We're going to take a break. Dan Rolfes, the head coach at Incarnate Word Academy, is our guest. Back after this.
St. Louis Acura was the #1 Acura dealer in Missouri in 2021, and we were the 17th in the nation for Acura sales volume. We sell over 100 pre-owned vehicles monthly, and we service all of the makes and models that we sell. We are waiting for verification of our 30th Acura Precision Team Award, the only dealer in the nation with so many awards for customer satisfaction and dealership performance. We have 300 pre-owned vehicles in stock right now. St. Louis Acura, better than ever for you.
Dan Rolfes is our guest, and Dan, I mentioned earlier, you guys are having it your way this year when it comes to scoring, and I know you're not a guy that wants to run it up on anybody. It just happens that way. But having said that, I mentioned something earlier to you about how we're seeing more programs starting to develop. Give me some schools that, since you've been coaching, that you really start to see them grow their program, where they're getting better players, and they're taking advantage of the coaching has become a little bit more consistent. What programs in the area have really started to catch your eye as far as competitiveness?
Over in Edwardsville, Illinois, they've always got a really, really well coached team and good players. I mean, this year they've got 3 Division I players. Whitfield has done a good job of getting some kids in there and winning and being successful. There, year in, year out, there's always different people. Yeah. In the middle of the state, Rockbridge is always good. They were ranked in the top 25 until this past weekend. They lost to a Webster team who probably has one of the most underrated kids around, and Eliza Maupin. It doesn't play, any select ball, but she's crazy athletic. 6'2" wing player who's going to K-State. But they've got a really nice team, and we played them in the state championship last year. So, I would look for some things for them this year. Jay Blossom, though, the guys coach is helping out with them, so he's got them all fired up and playing a lot of good defense. So.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. I'm seeing some coaches that are now starting to develop locally and creating that consistency, because it's really hard at this level to develop kids. You mentioned select. That seems to be the way to go, where kids, by the time they hit the door as a freshman, they can at least dribble with their left hand. They can do some things that they normally wouldn't be able to do. How much of an impact has that had on high school sports? And some people think it's good. I've always appreciated how you did it, where you didn't just go out and load up with the best kids in the area. You basically would take your team and participate in a lot of those tournaments, and you didn't have to travel all over the world, and parents wouldn't have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars. You kept it simple, and I think you guys have been rewarded with that concept.
Yeah. For us, I love the fact that, we get some time during the summer to play. And during that time, it gives me a great opportunity to see, what these kids can do, these up and comers, maybe the freshmen, sophomores, what they can do, after a couple of the seniors graduate. So I do love the fact that we get that opportunity. And even during the summer, we want to play the best. I mean, how are you going to find out what the heck your kids can do or you can do if you're not playing the best? So, I would rather play a quote unquote select team with our Incarnate team during the summer. Even if they kick our tails, you don't find out what you can do until you're challenged. And we kind of develop our regular schedule like that as well.
Yeah, it's you guys go out. You don't look for the little sisters of the poor. You have that national schedule, and you'll go find a good team. And I'm sure for you, you say this is going to prepare us to win the state championship, because we'll weather the storm against a really good team somewhere along the way.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want the very first time we're being challenged and finding some adversity that at the state tournament. I'd rather figure that out before. And even traveling has its benefits. The state tournament's not in St. Louis, so we're going to have to stay in hotel, and we're going to have to learn to shoot around and at other gyms and watch film in, a hotel room. So there's a lot to be said about traveling and kids figuring it out, and the kids not realizing, hey, we're not on like a little mini vacation and going to swim at the hotel pool. We're here to win a state championship, So they figure that out when we travel, during the season. And, so when we get to the state tournament, it's kind of like, okay, we've been there, we've done that. And, throughout the season, I feel like the season's to prepare you to try and win a state championship. And if we cover everything we can cover, hopefully we're successful, at the end of March.
Hey, is coaching harder now than maybe when you first started? And the reason why I asked that question is there's so much outside noise that kids deal with, whether it's social media, parents, relatives, friends, who are all in their ears, and some of them can compartmentalize it. Others will bring it to practice or bring it to a game. So for you, how much have you seen that change, and what's been your approach and how you try and keep that thing under control?
It really, I mean, social media has added a whole different level to coaching and managing teams. So, you have all these rankings. This player's ranked this in the country, and this here, and all these different outlets that they're trying to get hits and trying to get their name out there. So it definitely has its challenges, because there's been times where we'll have a player, hey, I'm ranked such and such in the country or in the state or in St. Louis, but I can't get more than this amount of playing time. And I have this conversation every year, and I have it with our parent meeting. For me, I don't care what you're ranked. I see it every day in practice. And to me, that's not going to affect one thing of how your playing time or how I treat you. I base it on practice and what I see in games. But it definitely has had its challenges when, when this person's ranked this, and well, how come why are you ranked ahead of me and this and that? So, I realized the point of it, and I realized that's, a way for college coaches to kind of develop a database. And I do feel like college coaches do put some stock in that and do, look at players' Twitter and Instagram and that sort of thing for information. But for me, it's what I see every day.
Hey, for you, and I don't know if you can even do this anymore. I'm sure when you were coming up as a player, when a coach wanted to get the team's attention, maybe we may not have a ball for practice today. Maybe we just ought to run for a while. So how do you get a kid's attention these days? Because they always say, well, you can't run them, they'll lose their legs, and some of them can't fight through it. So is this, if you can't run them, is it all about how much clock time they get?
Yeah.
Is that the best way you can send a message?
I'm in a lucky spot because if we got someone that doesn't want to play hard or run what we're running, then I got other kids on the bench that do that will run it what we want and will give me effort. So I'm in a lucky spot because we're deep, and there's nothing like sitting on the bench and not getting playing time that will motivate you. It's true. And I realize I'm in a totally different spot than a lot of high school coaches. I know that, but that's how it is for me. So.
Yeah, you are in a very unique situation for sure. All right, for you, who have been some of the? I know you mentioned your dad, and he was an impact on you from a coaching standpoint. Who are some of the other coaches that you've come to appreciate? Maybe it's college, maybe it's the NBA. I don't know. Who are some people that you really tried to appreciate and what they do and how they do it?
I really have to thank Jill Pizzotti at St. Louis University, and she's now an assistant at DePaul. And I know Jill.
Mm-hmm.
She gave me a chance. I was 22 years old and gave me a shot. I mean, at the time, it was a restricted earnings job, and I was making $1,000 a month, and I think I had to pay $200 for parking. So, but she gave me a shot, and I learned a lot. And those 4 or 5 years coaching, at St. Louis University, really taught me a lot. And it's really developed who I am as a coach. It's developed my thoughts on the college game, getting to college, and a lot of my connections. It's crazy of how many coaches are still at it, even 22 years down the road. And it's kind of funny to see there's a lot of people who we played against who are now head coaches. So that makes me feel really old. But it's kind of fun to have that connection. But in all reality, there isn't one, a particular coach that I try to just emulate. But I feel like I'm a constant learner. I do love going to college coaches' practices and seeing, what they're doing and talking to them afterwards. So I'm not sure if they're just one particular coach, but Jill has had a big impact on me.
Good for you. Hey, before we get out of here, I don't like to get into jinxing people, but you've been in this situation before where your team is really playing well and you're undefeated. You've seen this situation because every game from this point on could be a trap game because you're going to get the other team's best shot. And anything can happen. Somebody gets in foul trouble, somebody has a bad night, whatever, and all of a sudden you're scrambling. How do you and your coaches, as well as your team, how do you prepare for these games? I mean, do you turn it up a notch, even though you know the opponent is one you shouldn't have a problem with?
Yeah. And we've been in that situation a ton because, and I think that's what makes us feel better. And that's what I tell our kids all the time. We get everybody's best shot. So guess what? That in turn makes us better. But I think a lot of the reason for our success is the consistency that we have. So we are going to prepare for, the best team in America and the worst team in America the exact same. We're going to watch film. We're going to go through our scout. We're going to prepare the exact same way for every single game that we play. Because the minute that I don't, then our kids are like, well, Rolfes doesn't think they're any good, so we don't have to worry about them. And also in turn, once we get to the state finals and that semifinals and final game, they've already went, 30 scouts and they're used to it. And so one more scout is not difficult for them. And typically by the end of the season, there's only so many ways people can play and baseline out of bounds and offenses. So pretty good chance that we've defended that or scouted that in the past. So, our kids can reflect back and, oh yeah, I remember defending this. I remember how we did this. So I think our consistency on how we approach games is a big part of our success.
Before we wrap up, we talk about your coaching career, 10 state championships. You're the only guy in town that's coached 2 first-round draft choices and an Olympian, not to mention a person who was on a national championship team in the FISA, and also Felicia Chester, who I thought, when I was watching you, I thought maybe was one of the most complete players I'd ever seen. What's that feeling like? Because obviously those kids had talent. You were able to get it up to another level, unlike we've seen anywhere else. But what's it like, especially now when they've moved on? They both are married and with careers and kids and the whole 9 yards. What's that like for you at this point, other than the fact that, again, you're old?
Well, thanks for the reminder. The best thing about, if you talk about those two, the nicest, most genuine people you'll ever find. If they were not basketball players, I would still love them because of who they are, because they are awesome, awesome people. But you know what? People like that, I don't have to motivate them. If I've got to motivate you and all the time, you're not going to reach the success that they reached. It was in them to be successful. And it wasn't hard to motivate them. They wanted to play and they were going to give it everything they had, every practice, every game. So it is, I feel like kind of like a proud dad to see them go on and do the things that they did and have the success that they had. And especially because I know the type of people they are and they deserve it because they're awesome.
Well, you're awesome as well, man. You and your staff and all the kids you've coached and coaches that have worked with you. It's so good. And for full disclosure, my kids went to Incarnate Word and I follow them like they still go there. So to have a chance to visit with you today is a treat for me. And we always, Sharon Gherkin, the president, always keeps me informed once you guys get to Columbia. I get my phone, I get the text messages on the score virtually every other dribble. And I'm looking forward to getting those text messages again this year when you guys get back to Columbia and win another
thanks
one.
for having me on, Claibs. I appreciate it.
All right, man. He's Dan Rolfes. I'm Mike Claiborne. We thank everybody for checking us out on ClaibsOnline.com. But first,
you know, the only thing faster than this supersonic golf cart are the closing times at thehomeloanexpert.com. Mortgage rates are in the twos, and we have a 21-day closing guarantee. Apply online today at thehomeloanexpert.com.